I'm Greg Regan, and by the way, we have added another affiliate. We have 39 affiliates now, with the cement masons recently joined. So we're growing. It's a growing labor movement. I came here 3 years ago in Pittsburgh when I last spoke at your convention. 2 years ago. My goodness, how time flies. 2 years ago, and I said something then that remains true to this day, which is that PASS, and Abby Bernstein in particular, taught me how to lobby. The ability for PASS members as what is, frankly, a smaller union even within aviation, but the ability to have facts, to be the subject matter experts, to be the people that bring all of that knowledge to the table made PASS play on a scale that was much bigger than, it's not IBW with 1 million members, but the arguments, the policy was so effective and something that I learned a lot from. I learned in that moment when I was watching her early on in my career that when you come in with facts, if you're the best research, if you're the most knowledgeable, if you are coming in better prepared than everybody around you, you are going to win. You're going to win people over. It doesn't matter who's in charge, doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. When you have the facts on your side, and when you're well prepared, you're going to win that argument. And it's something that has carried with me for the rest of my career, is how effective I saw Abby be on the floor and be able to push her agenda and make sure that PASS was a stronger union for it. I started 14 years ago at TTD. And back then, there was, everything in the aviation world was actually pretty discordant. We were following up on a lot of bankruptcies. We were following up on a lot of mergers. Unions were fighting unions, and it hurt us. It really, really hurt us. And I think there was a survival mindset at that time where we were trying to make sure that, everything's shrinking, we're under attack, we need to keep what's ours. And it created a lot of problems. And when I look at where we are now, right now, I don't think that solidarity in aviation labor, and I would say transportation labor broadly, has ever been higher. And I think it's really important that you have Nick Daniels, Jason Ambrosi, Sarah Nelson, all these other people from the aviation labor world who are here speaking, because we know that when we are going to advocate, when we're going to be most effective, we have to be together. Every single worker in the aviation system plays a vital role in making sure that every single airplane takes off and lands safely, that people get to where they need to be. The pilots rely on the air traffic controllers, rely on the flight attendants, on the ground crew workers, on the maintenance people, on the customer service agents, on the people from Unite Here and SEIU who prepare the food. Every single worker is a vital piece of that overall experience. And when we're unified, when we show that solidarity, it's when we get the best results overall. And my friend John Samuelson from the Transport Workers Union said this the other day when we were in New York City. He was like, the Democrats aren't going to save you, the Republicans aren't going to save you, Joe Biden wasn't going to save you, Donald Trump wasn't going to save you. The union, those are the people who are going to have your back every step of the way. And it's our job, it's my job at TTD, and it's our national union's jobs. We work with the government that's given to us. And we do that effectively because we have the facts on our side. And I think the results can speak for themselves in that regard. If you look at the 2018 FAA reauthorization, where Donald Trump was in the White House the first time, Republicans controlled both chambers of Congress, and we got an FAA reauthorization bill passed that was endorsed by unions, by the labor movement. The most recent one, we had Joe Biden in the White House, we had Republicans controlling the Senate. We got a bill passed that was endorsed by the labor movement, by unions. That doesn't happen without the type of solidarity that you all are helping to build here. That showing that we have NATCA, PASS, AFA, ALPA, Unite Here, SEIU, TW, IAM, all of that together is what pushes that forward. And we all know that, it may be the #1 issue, maybe a fatigue rule issue right now, but the next time, if there's a PASS issue, if there's something that's really important about hiring more technicians, making sure their safety inspectors have the resources they need, that every one of those other unions is going to have your back. And that's what I'm proud to be able to do, is to unite all these people, bring us together and speak with a unified voice, because when we do that, we get people's attention. Unfortunately, sometimes we get their attention for the wrong reasons, like the tragedy that happened on the Potomac not that long ago. You know, that puts our industry front and center. It puts people, we're on people's minds. And what I think we can learn from that, because, you know, obviously we want to make sure something like that never happens again. We never want to have that be a tragedy that we're trying to confront. But when we are able to be responsive and speak with a solidified voice and provide solutions, provide better ways forward, this is what we need to fix the system. And we need to hire more controllers. We need to modernize our air traffic control system. We need to make sure that all of the technicians and safety specialists are also being lifted up and given the resources and tools they need to make our system safer. That is what changes things. That is what gets results, is when we're able to speak with that voice and we're all looking out for everybody else. We're not all in it for ourselves, we're in it for the overall system, we're in it for the overall safety, and we're in it for our brothers and sisters, regardless of what craft they're in and what union they're in. And you know, I think that solidarity, we've been in a very lucky time, and it's something that I don't take for granted, and I will never take for granted the fact that over the last 5 or so years, transportation and worker issues have been at the forefront of the national policy discussion. It started during COVID. You know, what was the first thing we needed to rescue when we realized we're facing a national pandemic here, international pandemic, we need to save our transportation systems, because these are the lifebloods of our country. These are what keep people moving. It's how we get grocery store workers to their jobs. You know, first responders, medical professionals, all of those things are dependent on our transportation network. And we pushed with all of the labor movement, we basically pushed the airline's hands to accept a bailout that was worker first. Every single penny was designed to go towards payroll and benefits for airline workers, not for CEOs, not to pad the books, but to make sure that we actually delivered relief for the people who were going to keep that system moving. We did the same thing on Amtrak to make sure that our passenger rail system are moving, for commuter rail, for transit, making sure that they had to maintain service all across the country and make sure that that was there, that vital system was there when we were able to reemerge from the pandemic. Then we had the infrastructure law after that, which is the largest investment in infrastructure in the history of our country, the biggest investment in transit, biggest investment in passenger rail ever, in airports, all of that. And now we're moving forward and we're starting to see an environment where obviously the politics have changed quite a bit, who's in charge have changed quite a bit, but the importance of our industries in transportation have not been lost. And I don't think it's an accident that we are in a situation now where you see a lot of cuts across the federal government, but they're not happening as much here. We fought back really hard when they tried to do it at the FAA. We fought back really hard when they tried to do it at the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration. And it's not been easy, but we have survived and we have grown in ways that many other parts of our economy have not. And that's because of our ability to speak together and to show our value to the overall country, whether it's moving goods, whether it's moving people, whether it's, you know, just growing our manufacturing base. Every single one of those are an important part of our economy, and I think it's not an accident that we are the ones who are actually doing well, regardless of who is in charge, regardless of whether it's a Democrat or Republican who's in control of Congress or in the White House. It doesn't matter, because we have the facts on our side. And I think the more that we're able to grow on that, the more that we're able to build on that, is only going to accrue to not only our members' benefits, not to the workers' benefits, but to the country's benefit. Because we keep this country moving. Transportation unions move America, period. And so I'm proud of being able to work with you all and to be able to carry that tradition forward and seize that opportunity, because there are going to be plenty more elections, there are going to be plenty more challenges to come across. Heaven forbid there won't be another accident like we saw, another tragedy like we saw in the Potomac. But you know, when something like that happens, whether it be in passenger rail or freight rail or aviation, we are prepared to stand up and fight back and provide real solutions going forward, ones that benefit passengers and consumers and workers, most importantly. You know, I was, one of the things I found really interesting over the last few years was how we saw the unions coalesce together, and when people had each other's backs. And COVID was one of the most unique environments that we've ever dealt with. And we dealt with a lot of things like work from home times, and then of course return to work. And that's one of the things Dave bent my ear about, was when the FAA tried to force everybody back to work without consulting the unions, without actually looking at the collective bargaining agreement that they had signed. And we got everyone together and brought them forward and said, this is bullshit. You can't just do this. We have to work with the union here. You have to be able to work together. And you know what? It wasn't always easy, but we got everybody together. And it wasn't just the fact that it was PASS or NACA or AFGE or other unions that are in the federal sector, but it was the airline pilots, it was the flight attendants, it was the mechanics, it was everybody else there showing up that we got your back. This is a bullshit argument, and we need to be able to defend our brothers and sisters in PASS. And I think we won. So temporarily we won. It's a long haul, but you know, I think that as we go forward, and this is something that you know, I couldn't believe more. I think we are in a stronger position now than we've been in decades. I think the funding that we're seeing right now, I think the ability to find better ways forward with long-term investments in aviation and our technology, long-term investments in the people that keep that technology moving. That's the most important part. We can all, you know, we can invest in new stuff all we want, but if you don't have the people that are well-trained and prepared to be able to operate it, maintain it, keep it functioning, then you're not going to get anywhere. So we're in a position now where, again, regardless of whatever the political dynamics are, we have an opportunity to show that we have the facts on our side, that we're going to be fighting together for a safer, better system, one that operates. It is the safest, it is the best, it is the most complex aviation system in the world, but we can always do better. And it's the men and women that all of us are lucky enough to represent that are going to do that work, that are going to move it forward. And it's our voices that are going to make those arguments to win the day. That is what the key to success is going to be. And I cannot, I can't wait for that fight when they try to take us for granted. The labor movement for granted, when they take every one of this for granted. And it doesn't matter, it could be the food service workers. And we're going to have the backs of all those transportation security officers from AFGE who had their collective bargaining rights stripped. We're going to fight for them. Every single one of these unions is going to fight for them too. We're going to fight to make sure that the food service workers, all those jobs that have been contracted out by the airlines that are now re-unionized with SEIU, Unite Here, Teamsters, we're going to make sure that they have the dignity of having a good paying job, that they have the support of everybody around them, because every single person that contributes to aviation should have the right to make a good living. We're going to fight to make sure that as there, you know, when there are tragedies like we had there, that the solutions being put forward are real solutions, ones that actually make a difference, that actually solve some of the problems that all of us see on a day-to-day basis inside our system. And we are not going to let them take us for granted at all. And a unified labor movement with solidarity is going to be the key to making sure that we hold everybody accountable. Doesn't matter what letter they put after your name as a politician, doesn't matter what you say, it's the actions that matter, and the labor movement is the only way that we are going to hold people accountable, from the manufacturers to the airline executives to the people in government. It's up to us to keep that forward. And the only way we can do that is with every single union and every single worker bought in and pushing. And that participation, the membership participation, is something that I've always respected and valued about past members, because I see it every single day. I see when you show up on Capitol Hill, and I see it when you bring your arguments forward. And we need that type of example across the entire labor movement. And when we do that, when we get that level of engagement, when we have that political engagement, we have the policy engagement, we are going to see some really great things going forward. And I personally cannot wait for that fight. And I look forward to being shoulder to shoulder with all of you every step of the way. And go Bills.
Go Bills is worth every bit of this. So, Greg, thank you for being here. I want to kind of pull a little bit of a thread here for our members, because we come in and we talk about aviation, we talk about what's happening, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about the other modes for transportation that you represent. Talk a little bit about rail, talk about buses, talk about all of the things that are going on outside aviation, so everybody gets a flavor of the broad perspective of TTD. Yeah, look, it's been, what's funny is when I talked about how discordant the aviation labor community was in, say, 2012, 2013, around that time, there was the opposite on the railroad side. Railroad unions were all copacetic. We had a really good relationship with all the Class 1 railroads. Now it's totally flipped. What we're seeing in Class 1 freight railroading is among the most, we're really talking about Gilded Age type of robber baron crap that we're seeing out of the railroads. It is absurd. The greed that we're seeing out of it for companies that are making billions and billions of dollars every year but continue to shrink their workforce and cut back on safety. So I see a lot of commonalities actually with what the fights we're having right now on the railroad side with what we were facing 10, 14 years ago on the aviation side in terms of that backs against the wall, how are we going to deal with a crisis in an industry right now? And we have safety, major safety concerns. And unfortunately, unlike aviation, when there is a tragedy or an accident, there's a lot of attention. People really pay attention on aviation, whether it be politicians or voters. On the railroad side, you can have something like East Palestine, where it looked like freaking Mordor. You had the burn off of vital chloride, and in a small town in eastern Ohio, and everyone just sort of says like, oh yeah, that was awful, we got to do something. And what has happened? Nothing. There hasn't been a single piece of legislation. The House of Representatives didn't even hold a hearing for over a year after that accident. And that is a big effect of the railroad lobby that's able to push for that. So I think that as we bring some of the lessons of aviation into railroading, I think there's a lot of examples that can be really helpful there, including confidential close call reporting systems, which are something that are, we're basically dragging the railroads kicking and screaming to agreeing to some of those things. But that's something that's been a standard of aviation for decades, and one that is valued by both the airlines and the unions as a valuable tool. So the more that we can actually add your voice into the railroad side, I think that will be really helpful. On transit, on maritime, on longshore, we're starting to see a real focus on reshoring some of these industries that we had given away for a long time. Shipbuilding is a major example of that. We've seen some really successful strikes with the longshoremen is one example of that, but also the attention that we got during the national bargaining fight on the rail side, to the investments we've seen in passenger rail. We've seen new entrants into the market, including Brightline West between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. That will hopefully be opening sometime in 2028. And again, I don't think it's an accident that we're seeing new entrants into traditionally public spaces like passenger rail or transit, because now there's money there because we actually invested in it. And when you actually have a strong foundation of funding for these industries, you're going to have private sector people, profit-minded people come in and be like, I think there's an opportunity to make some money there. And so we're seeing a natural growth of private investment in the right way in some of these industries, and that doesn't happen without public investment. So the more we're able to sort of advocate and have results-oriented outcomes, I think that's when people can see something tangible that we actually spent our money and it delivered something new and better. That creates a lot of opportunity, and it also creates interest from the private sector as well to start doing more of that work. Greg, thank you.